So, welcome everybody. This afternoon, we're going to talk a little bit about how to start a parent and caregiver support group for your library. My name is Natalie Dunaway. I'm the community outreach coordinator here. I'm also the state data coordinator here at the Library Commission, and I oversee our disability support services. Also, I think you all should be able to see my PowerPoint. I have Ruth Jean Curie's name on here as well. She's our disability support coordinator. We're going to talk about Ruth and how awesome she is a little later. She should be here as well on the on the Zoom. So if I say anything or if she wants to add any more information, she'll add it in the chat or she'll interrupt me. Ruth, you're welcome to do that. She's really where a lot of our knowledge base with this comes from. So if we have any questions or anything like that, and she's got some insights to share, she'll do it. And also, we'll have her contact information as well at the end of this. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to talk a little bit about today is the support group we started here at the Library Commission. I'm going to walk you through sort of what we thought about, what we encountered when we launched this program here last May, and some things to think about, essentially, some important variables to consider if you're interested in starting one in your own library. But we're also going to talk a little bit about alternative ways to host a support group in case maybe you have some space restrictions or some time restrictions with staff, things like that. So one thing that I encourage throughout this is to keep in mind that Ruth and our roles are really dynamic. So if we make our way through this and you kind of start thinking, well, I'm not sure if we're quite ready for a full in-person, regular support group, I encourage you to think of some other ways that you could kind of create this experience with your library either involved or hosting it. And if you're not quite ready for a support group, but say you want staff to receive a little professional development, for example, on how to better interact with and welcome patrons with disabilities and their families, we can give you training on that as well. So this presentation is meant to invite a lot of conversations and questions, so please don't hesitate with those. If there are some that require a little more discussion, we might put those more towards the end of into the training. But anyways, so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So, and again, I encourage any questions y'all have, you can either speak up or you can put them in the chat. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about MLC's support group. So the idea really came from Ruth. Last May, we started this in person here at MLC, but Ruth has decades of experience in state government, libraries, and education with working with individuals and patrons with disability and those on the autism spectrum. So she really had a lot of great knowledge and a wealth of experience to contribute to this. And we started this with folks she had been working with for a while. This was actually intended to be a pilot program here at the Library Commission, but it really took off, and it's once a month, once a month, the last Saturday of the month. And we found within a couple months, people were really enjoying themselves, really enjoying our space. So now it's just become a regular program that we have every month here. So it's a lot of fun, and we've learned a lot along the way. So what it looks like for us here at the Commission. So there are some important variables to take into consideration with how ours works. So first off, like I mentioned, the win is once a month, last Saturday of the month. The actual group lasts, I'm going to put that in quotation, lasts from 1 to 2 p.m. That's our scheduled time. But Ruth and I get here around noon, and we're here till about 3. That's just to do some prep, make sure sign-in sheets are laid out, make sure there's activities laid out for the folks who come and want to engage in like STEM activities and things like that while parents and caregivers meet. But then also to sort of give some flexibilities to those attendees who may be running a little late or may want to talk with Ruth or the speaker that we host for them, a little bit after 2 p.m. So we're going to talk about time and flexibility in doing this in person a little bit later, but that's kind of what it looks like here on our end. Where obviously it's here at MLC. We're in Jackson, Mississippi, and it's in our main meeting room. And who our support group supports are families and caregivers of those with disabilities, and specifically those on the autism spectrum. We also have a partnership. This was a partnership that came from Ruth, and like I said, all of her wonderful connections she knows. We have a partnership with UMC, University Medical Center here in Jackson, with their occupational therapy students, or their occupational therapy department sends students to the support group to engage with those who want to color or draw or play with a STEM kit while their parents meet. We source speakers. Ruth sources speakers usually a few months in advance to deal and present with a variety of topics that the parents are interested in. We ask them what they're interested in. Speakers can come from local organizational groups or state departments, things like that. And obviously MLC staff are involved. When this first started, we had 3 or 4 MLC staff participate, but we found, just through learning the schedule and learning what was manageable and what we, our time frames, it's me, Ruth, our UMC volunteers, and the speaker usually. So here's some pictures, just to give you an idea of what it looks like in our main meeting room. So you can see here on the bottom left is we have several tables lined up with various activities on them, some simple puzzles, there's some colors and some paints, some things like that. What you see are also pictures of folks meeting with each other. We do take privacy here very seriously, so we have a sign-in sheet that parents can sign for themselves or on their children's behalf, and they can opt in or opt out of having their photo taken. So I know it's not the most attractive photo having faces blurred, but it's something that we said we would do, so we honor that no matter who we're presenting to or where we're sharing the photos. And then the top right photo is of a gentleman. His name is Desmond. He works with a local organization here in Jackson named Life, and just an example, he came and presented once on community resources for our attendees. So this is an example of the flyers we create. Each month we work with PR. We use Canva, wonderful app. Wonderful app if you've never used it. It's really great. And we just create a simple flyer that has Ruth's contact information, the speaker, the topic for the month, obviously the commission's day, the commission's address, phone number, the date, time, things like that. So I do recommend, if you start something like this, kind of keep it consistent. It's good for record keeping and knowledge retention to have a flyer. You can go back and look at who you hosted, on what day. You can see the kind of the patterns of your support group, and obviously digital flyers are easy to share across different platforms, websites, things like that. So where do I start? This all seems great, Natalie, but I have limited resources. My library has limited space. I don't know who to reach out to, except for you and Ruth, and you're 3 hours away. what do I even start thinking about if I want to do something like this? Well, I would recommend that first you start by kind of mapping out your community. Ask yourself what resources are already present. Does a support group already exist? What clinics are in your area? Are there any group homes? Things like that. And get that data. Data collection can also start with just having conversations, right? So if you know of a couple patrons who might have some insights towards starting something like this, just ask them what they think. You can do surveys later on if you think this is something you want to pursue, but just start by talking to people. Obviously, look at staff workload, library hours, physical capacity, things like that. Always, I mean, I kind of advise to avoid having staff volunteer their time or working outside of hours. So if it's something that will require that, we may want to look at sort of readjusting the time or day parameters for it. So think about your library's placement and accessibility. If your library is maybe not the most accessible for patrons who have disabilities, it may be a good idea to host this in another community location. Or if there's already a group, for example, that does something like this, the library can still participate in a number of ways, and we'll talk about that. But then also, ultimately, before starting something like this, what is your goal? Is your goal to create a more inclusive space? Is your goal to host a support group for families and caregivers specifically? Is your goal to help individuals learn about parent resources? All of those things. I mean, kind of hash out what the goal of this is in the end, and that will help you build and plan and organize in order to meet it. So talking about space, I have on here that meeting rooms are ideal, but the reason for that is at the time I was thinking, oh, hi Natalia, welcome. I was thinking that, meeting rooms, if they're kind of spaced off, noise levels can get a little loud, at least for ours here at the Library Commission. So you may want to consider an area that's sort of spaced away, not to keep people away from the library areas, but if folks do participate and maybe they have vocal stems, maybe their kids have vocal stems, it can get a little noisy at times, and it's just good to have a space where they can do that freely, right? So that's my next point, noise and shared space. So at MLC, we embrace the noise. We do not separate parents and kids. We're a state agency. We're not a therapy clinic. We're not anything like that. So we keep everybody in the meeting room. There is a little space between like where the parents and caregivers meet and where the kids who come, engage in activities. But we communicate to parents about potential noise levels in case they have a child on the spectrum who comes and is easily overwhelmed by that. And I communicate it to our speakers as well. Be prepared for someone to have a lot of fun, playing with a STEM toy and have a vocal stem. You might have to repeat, some information on a PowerPoint, but that's okay. We lean into it. Also, when it comes to your space, you might want to think about lighting. Different sensory responses are different from everybody. And like, for example, in this recording room, there are some really, really bright, like news anchor room lights, like blaring down on me. But that could be really overwhelming for someone who is sensory sensitive. So keep in mind those potential needs. And then presenter resources. Does your space have the ability to offer AV setup? You may not need it. We have some presenters who come in who don't use PowerPoint and treat the session like it's a conversation with the parents. They may just provide handouts, things like that. It really it depends. The biggest thing with this is if you're going to host this in a physical space, for the folks who are going to participate, parents, caregivers, your speakers, you source, things like that, just make them aware of the space and kind of what to expect. So cost. For us here at the Library Commission, it's very, very low cost. We provide some waters and some very light snacks. All of our snacks are prepackaged usually, just to kind of keep in mind allergies and maybe some restrictions with that. But you can always ask attendees if you want to have like a pizza party one day, which we did, if there are any allergies to be aware of. You saw in the photo, or I have a photo coming up, you'll see Ruth provides some really, really great and innovative and intentional, but pretty low cost STEM activities. We'll take a look at those in a second. Really though, I think what you'll find is that the cost is more you and your staff's time, for sure. Does anyone have any questions so far? Oh, that's a great question. So Liz asks, do you have a list of the speakers or resources that you collaborate with, and how do you find them, or do they find you? We definitely have a list of folks that we have had come and speak over the past year. If you'd like to see that, Liz, or see what departments or organizations they come from, we can absolutely get that to you. How do we find them? How do they find us? Ruth participates in a lot of conferences around the area, and she sources speakers that way. And she just has she has a really wide knowledge base of the field. So if you're looking for a particular speaker, you can reach out to Ruth or myself, and we can help you find someone for the subject or the information that you'd like to communicate to folks. Does that kind of answer your question?
Natalie, can I just add something, please?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Yes, I think a lot of the time too, we ask our parents to find out what they are really interested in. So if some of the topic that some of your parents are interested in are the same topic that we have, we can give you, and we can also help you with other topics too, other speakers. And I want to add, I know you talk about one of the things, the easiest place to really get some parents is like the school system, connect with those special ed teachers and talk to them. I think that really helps us too a lot. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, not at all, Ruth. This is exactly what we need to hear for sure. Thank you very much. Going off what Ruth mentioned, actually that's a really good point. So asking the parents what they would like to learn about. So we had a mother that comes to our support group that had a community connection with a swimming instructor who specialized in swim lessons for those with disabilities and those who are kind of sensory sensitive to like water and things like that. So we had her one Saturday, and it was great. It was so informative for the parents, and that's how we found out about her. Was the mom said essentially, hey, I know somebody. So that's kind of how it works too. There's a lot of conversation and a lot of relationship building that can go in this, that I personally think should go into this, especially if you want it to have some longevity. But that's sort of how we do it. Thank you, Ruth, for adding that. I really appreciate it. So here's some pictures of some of the activities that Ruth sets out. So you can see here's some simple puzzles, not too many pieces, some colorful blocks and, coloring sheets and things like that. Also on the left picture in the upper right, you can kind of see part of it. Ruth has the entire alphabet on pieces of cardboard, and each letter is made with a different texture or a different item. Like I think there's the letter N in there that's made with beans, and I think the letter X is made with popsicle sticks, easy things like that, just for folks to engage with. Oh, I want to go back and make a note. So we do have a star here at the bottom of the screen. One step that we do take is make sure to sanitize supplies that are to be reused. So talking about time a little bit. So I mentioned that time is kind of your biggest cost here. Consistent communication and having your meetings consistently, especially with vulnerable populations, is really, really, really important. Don't be discouraged if it takes time to kind of take off. There are people that learn about our support group here by word of mouth. From other parents that participate. So that can take a little time. Having consistency in setting is important. One thing I learned is that changing settings for folks, especially for folks on the spectrum, can be a little jarring at times. So having consistency, clear communication, consistency in how you communicate is going to be really important for demonstrating intentionality to folks. So earlier I mentioned that hours here at MLC is on paper from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., but Ruth and I get here a little earlier to set things up, and the parents some of them may run late. That's normal. That's to be expected. It's difficult to get out of the house, I would think, with kids in the first place. It's probably also difficult to get out of the house when you have folks that need a little extra assistance. So if you set yours from 1 to 2 and someone comes at 1:30 and needs a little bit of extra time after 2 just to connect and say hey and get some information maybe they missed, I really encourage you to be flexible in that way. Strict time limits could be a deterrent for folks. Folks may feel like it isn't the space for them, and you really, especially when you're working with vulnerable populations, you want to keep in mind perceptions. I can tell you from the parents we've worked with before, just hearing anecdotes, hearing their feedback, there's already kind of an assumption that public places are not for them or their children, and we don't want to reinforce that. We want to change that. We want to make sure that everybody feels welcome in the public library and let them know that it is a space for them as well. So, any questions so far? You good? Okay.
Sorry, Natalie,
Yeah,
can I
go
add
ahead.
something before you? It's okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about, I know in the meeting room sometimes you want to separate the kids and the parents. If you don't have a larger meeting room, you have to be careful with that because of the safety. And there is so many parents that have kids with disability, they don't want to get their kids farther away from them. So that is something also to think about.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes, Ruth, thank you for reinforcing that. So, yeah, we don't separate the kids who come with their parents or caregivers here. I was asked why once, and I said, well, I think it's best if everybody's in the same room, with one another. Sometimes, the kids might get nervous if they don't, see their parents, or aren't able to visibly, connect with them or anything like that. Also, like I said, because of the safety, like Ruth mentioned, and also because at the end of it, we are a state agency. We're not a clinic. Yeah, go ahead, Ruth. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we also, if we do that, we have to go through background check.
Right.
For those our volunteers that are coming from UMC.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also another issue for us.
Yeah. So we keep everybody in the same room. Now, granted, our meeting room is large enough that we can outfit it in a way to fit everybody. If that seems like it might be a challenge at some point for y'all, if y'all get something like this started, we can talk about ways to pivot around that. So, but yeah, thank you, Ruth. I appreciate that. So people are going to be your biggest asset with this. So we've talked about community connections. We've talked about talking to your attendees once you get this rolling. We've talked about asking patrons, what do you think? What do you think people would like? Things like that. Your people are going to be a really, really strong asset for you. So think about your community. Think about your patron populations. If you decide to map out your community and you sort of have all the populations of your service area mapped out, think about who you don't have there if you're wondering how you can tap into this community. And like Ruth said, schools, homeschool groups, parent groups, physical therapy offices, any sort of relevant offices would be really, really good to contact, to talk to them about maybe your idea of how you want to do this. So you can also do an assessment. I know there's a system that Ruth's been working with now that summer reading's over. They're starting an assessment of their local community to sort of see what people need and want and are interested in. Like I said, reach out to your leaders and your parents for insights. If you can find a community ambassador, if you can find someone who's tapped into this community to sort of help communicate your goals and the program or the support group with you, that's awesome. That's also really, really recommended. So volunteers, helpers, things like this will help. All of that will help your support group be successful. So like we do here at the Commission, we source speakers from community groups, government organizations, nonprofits, to get attendees a range of resources. And you can ask, like Ruth said, you can ask participants what they need. So some alternative spaces. Natalie I can tell you right now, we don't have the space to do that. That's okay. That's okay. So some alternative options are Zoom. I believe a free Zoom account is can host up to 45 participants. Group FaceTime is another option. You can add up to 32 folks to one group FaceTime. However, that would exclude Android users if they were using their phone. But you can FaceTime on iPads as well, just so you know. Yeah, virtual options are definitely there, but if you're in an area where folks struggle with internet accessibility, that's something that you want to think about as well. Computer accessibility, things like that. Off-site is another option. You don't have to do this at your public library for your library to participate. Community centers, group homes, churches, schools, restaurants, coffee shops, parks could all be places to meet with parents and caregivers and their kids and your speaker. You can bring library resources. If there's already a group like this that meets in your community, you can still participate by bringing STEM kits or bringing other resources that the parents may find beneficial. Let's see. Keep in mind stimuli, accessibility, and weather. I'm going to talk about this. I think it's in the next slide or the next couple slides, but some folks have comorbidities. And so something, going to the park during the summer might sound really nice for everybody, but something like extreme heat could make someone sick or, make them not fall ill or something like that. So think about kind of avoiding extremes like that. A group already exists, so see how the library can get involved. I mentioned this, invite them on a tour of the library if the group already exists. Like, invite them to the library, show them around, show them resources that are pertinent to them, and let them know that it's a space for them as well. So I want to talk a little bit about MLC's disability support services, and this goes back to earlier when I was talking about keeping in mind that we're dynamic here. All right, so we're outfitted to fit y'all's needs. So if you're interested in starting a support group, part of what Ruth does is she'll come and talk to you about some of your goals and sort of how to get started with it. And we'll also help facilitate it in the early stages. However, our goal here at the Commission is to set y'all up so that you're able to host them independently. If you find an enthusiastic group of parents or volunteers, you may get to the point where instead of your library staff kind of helping facilitate it, the parents can kind of facilitate it on their own. Maybe you just help them find a speaker or provide some resources, things like that. Ruth also will come and train staff on how to serve and connect to differently abled patrons in their communities. Maybe you're not quite ready to dive into something like a support group, but like I mentioned earlier, you want a little more professional development for your staff. What are some things we can do around the library to make it more appealing, or make it more friendly or more accessible, and make sure these folks know this is a space for them as well. Ruth can come and give you some training on that. Absolutely. We also, I think, like we just chatted with Liz about, we have information on which organizations are where. So if you kind of need a little help mapping out what might be some good organizations to come and speak with your library patrons, just let us know. We can help you connect with them. And then we also have an MLC, MLC Disability Resources LibGuide. I believe y'all will get this PowerPoint. Oh, there we go. Sharon's got it. I was going to say we'll send it out, but Sharon put it in the chat. Thank you very much. So please look at that. There's tons of resources on state resources, local organizations, resources for patrons with different disabilities, different kinds of disabilities, things like that. So please take a look and let us know if you have any questions about it, for sure. Or if you think there's anything that might be good to add. Absolutely. We're always trying to grow it. So one thing I wanted to talk about is this is a continuous learning process. So I wanted to go over some things that I personally have learned this year. This program, I'm really, really proud of it. I'm really proud that we have it here at the Commission, and there's something kind of new to learn each month. So some things to keep in mind, kind of reflecting back to the past 12 months, what I've learned is, like I mentioned before, changing physical spaces can be jarring for folks on the spectrum. Stimuli is more than sounds, textures, or light, and an unfamiliar space can be overstimulating. Routine is really good. A consistent, familiar face is important for establishing trust as well. So that routine also kind of applies to people as well. That's not to say that you can never have a different library or library staff member participate if you have staff out, but it's just good to have some consistency with who's there. Just like in any human, comorbidities exist in an individual, and like I mentioned earlier, I learned this through proposing an outside summer activity when it actually would probably have been too hot for some of our folks in our support group. It would have been too hot for them to be outside for too long. Taking a genuine interest really matters. That's my next point on this. Like I said, a lot of these parents already feel like public spaces are not for them or their children. So taking a genuine interest in showing them that you are genuinely trying to, you know, learn about them, learn about their needs, and welcoming them into your library space is really important. And also, folks may not know what the library has. So it's also a great, you know, teaching opportunity to say, look at all the wonderful stuff your local public library has for you. So to wrap that bit up, conversations, consistency, and follow through lead to trust, which is really what you need. This is one thing I've learned, is you really have to establish that trust with this community, for sure. So I also included some general customer service tips for patrons with disabilities. This was included in a customer service training I did at a library a few months ago, but I thought this was also a good place to put these tips. Just as a reminder, ask a person with a disability if that person needs help before helping them. Talk directly to a person, to the person with a disability. Refer to a person's disability only if it's relevant to the conversation, and use first-person language, and of course avoid derogatory slang or negative descriptions, right? Provide information in alternate means, written, spoken means, diagrams. Don't be afraid to use common terms of phrases. That's not something you have to be afraid to do. Let's go for a walk, things like that. Avoid touching mobility devices or assistive technology without the owner's consent. This is a pretty, I mean, all of these are pretty big, but this is a pretty big one. Folks in a wheelchair, for example, may feel like that wheelchair is, I mean, it's an extension of them. So let's just avoid touching people's mobility devices without their consent first. And also understand that not everybody uses eye contact. That's an important reminder. And I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Ruth, for hopping on and sharing your insight. There's my my information up here. Natalie Dunaway, Community Outreach Coordinator, and then Ruth is our Disability Support Coordinator. It's got our email. It's got our phone number, excuse me. Just give us a phone call if y'all have any questions. If you just want to run some ideas by Ruth or by me about where to start, local organizations, how to map the community. Maybe you want to do a needs assessment or an assessment amongst your patrons, and you want to proofread, whatever you want. We're here to support you in pursuing this kind of programming and this kind of support for your communities. So